So we're standing in front of a laurel hedge which edges a drive. There's been dramatic regrowth in only a year, and if you look closely at these laurel stems you can see that they put on 2 sets of growth in a single year, which are at least 2 foot if not 3 foot long. So the hedge is getting completely out of control and it's time to give it a good prune. This laurel hedge is kept under control with pruning every year, and we need to prune the top of it as well as simply the sides. So it's quite a big job, but again the hedge trimmer will do a great deal of it, and if we want to keep this laurel hedge properly under control we need to prune it once a year. We may find the odd bit of growth is too thick for the hedge trimmer and we may have to prune that by hand with a pair of secateurs or long-handled pruners, but let's see how we go and see how much is left after we've started to trim this back. And if you just step back a minute and look, you can see that overall this hedge has probably grown 3 foot in a year. It still looks quite even, it still looks quite under control, but in another year's time it's going to be brushing past cars, it's going to be a real problem, and we need to do something about it and keep on top of the situation. So what we can see here is that actually the hedge trimmer is quite capable of cutting through a twig or a new shoot the size of my finger. But every year that you undertake this exercise, you're actually adding an inch or 2 to the overall width of the laurel hedge. It grows much faster than the yew hedge we looked at earlier. So at some point in 5 years' time, one will need to go back to pruning this by hand to take it back in probably another foot or so, because over 5 years, just trimming it like this, you'll find that the hedge is still a bit wider than you actually want it. But for ease of maintenance, a once a year trim like this is fine. You only need to do a bigger job once in a while. We can see if we look up towards the top that some of the new shoots there are rather bigger than my finger, and the hedge trimmer is struggling to get through some of them. Those may have to be cut by hand with a pair of secateurs or with a ladder, but it doesn't much matter if the hedge trimmer will cut through that stem a little bit higher up. We don't actually mind if the hedge is a little bit taller than it was, but we do mind here because this is where the cars are going to brush by it. So we cut back, just leaving a few leaves here and there. We don't want any great big holes or gaps, and what we'll find is that before autumn you'll see new shoots coming off this laurel. Laurel is remarkably resilient, and before you know it the new shoots will have filled up these gaps, and by next spring it'll look as though the hedge is absolutely prim and proper and neat and tidy. Only after next year's spring growth will it start to get out of control again and be ready for a trim off in the summer.